The explosion threw Commander Sarah Chen against the metal wall of her ship's bridge. Red warning lights flashed everywhere as smoke filled the air. She could hear the screaming sound of metal tearing apart around her. Her small reconnaissance ship was dying, and she knew it. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7, her ship's computer said in its calm voice. Life support failing. Estimated time until total system failure, 3 minutes. Sarah pulled herself up and looked at the main screen. 3 massive alien ships surrounded her vessel. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Dark metal hulls covered with glowing blue lines that pulsed like heartbeats. Each ship was 10 times bigger than her own. She had been on a simple mission. Get close to the alien fleet, take pictures, send the information back to Earth, stay hidden. But something had gone wrong. They had found her. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony. For 2 years they had been attacking human colonies across the galaxy. Every time humans tried to fight back, they lost. The aliens had better weapons, better shields, better everything. Earth was running out of places to hide. Sarah tried to reach the emergency controls, but another explosion knocked her down. Through the broken window, she could see one of the alien ships getting closer. A bright yellow beam shot out from its front. The beam touched her ship, and suddenly she couldn't move. Tractor beam, she whispered. She had heard about these in the reports from other battles. Once the aliens caught you with their tractor beam, there was no escape. Her ship shook as the alien vessel pulled her inside. Sarah looked around the bridge one last time. Her crew was gone. The other 3 members of her team had been in the engine room when the first attack hit. She was alone. The pulling stopped. Through the window, she could see she was inside a huge bay. The walls were made of the same dark metal as the outside of the ship. Strange symbols glowed along the surfaces. Everything looked clean and perfect. Not like human ships with their rough welding marks and repair patches. Sarah heard footsteps outside her ship. Heavy footsteps. More than one person walking. She checked her sidearm. Still there. The aliens probably thought human weapons were too weak to worry about. The door to her ship exploded inward. Not with fire, but with some kind of energy blast that turned the metal into dust. 3 figures walked through the opening. They were tall. Much taller than humans. Maybe 8 feet high. Their skin looked like leather, but it was dark green with black spots. They had 4 arms instead of 2. Their faces were long with big eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. When they opened their mouths, Sarah could see rows of sharp teeth. One of them pointed a weapon at her. It didn't look like any gun she had ever seen. More like a crystal rod that hummed with energy. She raised her hand slowly. Human female, the alien said. Its voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. You will come with us, Sarah nodded. She had no choice. Fighting 3 armed aliens in a small space was suicide, but she watched everything as they led her out of her ship. She counted steps. She looked at the layout of the bay. She noticed which direction they were walking. The corridors of the alien ship were massive. The ceiling was at least 12 feet high. Everything was made of that same dark metal with glowing lines. The air smelled strange, like ozone and something else she couldn't identify. They passed other aliens in the hallways. All of them stopped to stare at her. Some made clicking sounds with their teeth. Others just watched with those big yellow eyes. Sarah kept her face calm, but inside she was taking notes. How many aliens were on this ship? What kind of weapons did they carry? How did they move? After walking for 10 minutes, they reached a large door. It slid open without any sound. The room beyond was enormous. It had to be the bridge. Dozens of aliens sat at control stations. Giant screens showed star maps and data she couldn't read. At the center of the room stood the biggest alien she had seen yet. This one was at least 9 feet tall. Its skin was darker than the others, almost black. It wore some kind of armor that looked like it was made from the same material as the ship. When it turned to look at her, Sarah saw scars across its face. So this is what a human looks like, the big alien said. Its voice was even deeper than the others. Smaller than I expected. Weaker too. The 3 aliens who had brought her pushed Sarah forward. She stumbled but caught herself. The big alien walked around her in a circle, looking at her like she was some kind of animal in a zoo. I am War Master Kethvar, he said, commander of this fleet, destroyer of 7 human worlds. And you, little human, are my prisoner. Sarah looked up at him. Commander Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Corps. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. Earth Defense Corps, what a joke. Your entire species couldn't defend a single planet against us. He waved one of his 4 hands at the screens around them. Images appeared showing burning cities and destroyed spaceships. All human. Sarah recognized some of the places. New Geneva, Port Luna, Kepler Station. Your people fight with such primitive weapons, Kethvar continued. Bullets and missiles. Chemical explosives. We have moved beyond such crude tools centuries ago. He pointed at a display showing different types of weapons. Energy beams that could cut through mountains. Plasma cannons that burned hotter than stars. Shields that could stop anything humans could throw at them. But you are useful to me, Kethvar said, turning back to Sarah. Your ship was heading toward Proxima Station, the last major human base. You were going to warn them about our attack. Sarah kept her face blank. That was exactly what she had been planning to do. Instead, you will help us destroy them, Kethvar said. You will send them a message. Tell them you escaped. Tell them to come save you. When they arrive, my fleet will be waiting. I won't help you kill my own people, Sarah said. Kethvar leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like sulfur. You will. Because if you don't, I will make sure your death is very, very slow, and then I will kill every human in this galaxy anyway. He straightened up and looked at his crew. Take her to the holding cells. Let her think about her choice. Tomorrow we will begin her education. As the guards led her away, Sarah took one more look around the bridge. She memorized the positions of the control stations. She noticed which aliens seemed to be in charge. She saw the weapons they carried and how they moved. Most importantly, she saw something that gave her hope. For all their advanced technology, the aliens were careless. They thought humans were too weak and stupid to be a real threat. They weren't watching her as carefully as they should. That might be the mistake that saved humanity. The holding cell was small and dark. But Sarah didn't plan to be there long. She had work to do. Sarah woke up when the cell door opened. She had been lying on the hard metal floor, but she wasn't really asleep. She had been listening, learning the sounds of the ship, footsteps in the corridor, the hum of the engines, the way the aliens talked to each other in their clicking language. 2 guards came in. They grabbed her arms and pulled her to her feet. Neither one spoke to her. They just dragged her through the corridors back to the bridge. War Master Kethvar was waiting for her. He stood in front of a large chair that looked like a throne. Other aliens sat at their stations around the room, but Sarah could feel them watching her. Did you sleep well, human? Kethvar asked. His yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter today. Well enough, Sarah replied. She kept her voice steady. Good. Because today you will learn why fighting us is pointless. He gestured to one of the aliens at a control station. Show her the Proxima system. The main screen changed. It showed a star map with planets and space stations marked in different colors. Sarah recognized it immediately. Proxima Station was the bright blue dot in the center. Around it were smaller dots showing the human defense fleet. 47 human ships, Kethvar said. That is all your species has left. Pathetic. He waved his hand again. The display changed to show the alien fleet. Sarah's heart sank. There were over 200 ships, each one bigger and more powerful than anything humans had built. We will arrive at Proxima in 6 days, Kethvar continued. Your people will have maybe 10 minutes to realize what is happening. Then they will all be dead. Sarah forced herself to look calm. Inside, her mind was racing. 6 days. That wasn't much time. But first, Kethvar said, you will tell me everything about your defenses. Where are the weapon platforms? How many fighters do you have? What are your battle plans? I don't know anything about that, Sarah lied. I'm just a reconnaissance pilot. Kethvar made that grinding laugh sound again. Of course you do. Humans always lie. It is one of your most annoying traits. He nodded to one of his officers. The alien pressed some controls and a new device rose from the floor. It looked like a chair made of crystal and metal. Cables and wires hung from it like mechanical tentacles. This is a memory extractor, Kethvar explained. It will dig through your thoughts and take what I need. The process is uncomfortable. Most subjects go insane. Sarah stared at the machine. She had heard rumors about alien technology like this, but seeing it was different. The crystal parts pulsed with blue light. The metal pieces moved on their own, reaching toward her like hungry fingers. However, Kethvar said, I am feeling generous today. Answer my questions willingly and I won't use the machine. Refuse, and I will take what I want anyway. Sarah pretended to think about it. Then she sighed and let her shoulders slump. What do you want to know? For the next 3 hours, Kethavar asked her questions. Where were the defense platforms around Proxima Station? How many fighters were stationed there? What kind of weapons did the human ships have? Sarah answered all of them. But she lied about everything important. She said there were weapon platforms where there weren't any. She claimed the human ships had new shields that could stop energy weapons. She told him the defense fleet was twice as big as it really was. The whole time, she was also asking questions of her own. She acted impressed by the alien technology. She asked how their weapons worked, how their ships could move so fast, how their shields could stop human bullets. Kethavar was happy to explain. He thought he was showing off, proving how superior his people were. He didn't realize Sarah was learning everything she could about their weaknesses. Our plasma cannons can destroy your largest ships with a single shot, he bragged. The energy beam heats metal to 10,000 degrees instantly. Amazing, Sarah said. What about your shields? They can deflect any energy weapon your people have built. Lasers, plasma, particle beams, nothing gets through. Even our new pulse rifles? Sarah asked, naming a weapon that didn't exist. Kethavar's eyes narrowed. What pulse rifles? Sarah backtracked quickly. Oh, they're just prototypes. Probably don't work anyway. But she had learned something important. The alien shields were designed to stop energy weapons. That was their focus. What about physical objects? She asked carefully. Like missiles? Our point defense systems destroy any missile before it gets close, Kethavar said with confidence. We detect them from thousands of miles away. Sarah nodded and filed that information away too. Their sensors were very good at detecting big, obvious threats. But what about small ones? The interrogation continued through the afternoon. Kethavar seemed to enjoy himself. He showed her recordings of battles where human ships were destroyed in seconds. He explained how alien technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had built. Your people still use chemical rockets, he said with disgust. We have mastered gravity manipulation. You fight with metal bullets. We control the fundamental forces of the universe. But Sarah noticed something interesting. For all their advanced technology, the aliens were very predictable. They relied on their computers and sensors for everything. They didn't seem to understand improvisation or chaos. When Kethavar showed her their battle plans, they were perfectly organized. Every ship had a specific position. Every attack followed a precise pattern. There was no room for creativity or adaptation. Your species is fascinating in its primitiveness, Kethavar said as the session ended. You still fight like animals. All instinct and violence. We have evolved beyond such base emotions. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but inside she was smiling. The aliens thought like machines. They couldn't understand that sometimes the primitive way was the better way. As the guards prepared to take her back to her cell, Kethavar made one final comment. Tomorrow, you will record a message for your people at Proxima Station. You will tell them you escaped from us. You will beg them to come rescue you. When they arrive, they will fly right into our trap. And if I refuse? Sarah asked. Kethavar pointed at the memory extractor. Then I will rip the information from your mind and send the message myself. Either way, your people will die. But if you cooperate, I will make their deaths quick. Sarah nodded slowly. I'll think about it. As they led her away, she was indeed thinking. But not about cooperating. She was thinking about everything she had learned. The aliens were powerful, but they had blind spots. They were advanced, but they were also arrogant. Most importantly, they had made one critical mistake. They thought humans were just animals with crude technology. They didn't understand that sometimes being primitive was an advantage. Back in her cell, Sarah began to plan. She had less than 6 days to find a way to warn Proxima Station and escape this ship. It seemed impossible. But humans had been doing impossible things since they first learned to make fire, and Sarah was about to remind the galaxy why her species had survived every challenge they had ever faced. She just needed to get her hands free first. The third day of Sarah's imprisonment started like the others. Guards came to get her. They walked her through the corridors to the bridge. But today felt different. There was more activity on the ship. More aliens moving around with purpose. War Master Kethavar was standing in front of the main display when she arrived. The screen showed the Proxima system getting closer. They would arrive in 3 days. Today, human, you will make your choice, Kethavar announced without turning around. You will help me destroy your people, or you will watch me do it anyway. Sarah said nothing. She had spent the last 2 days carefully observing everything around her. The layout of the ship, the routines of the crew, the weapons the guards carried. Most importantly, she had been working on her restraints. The energy cuffs around her wrists looked impossible to break. They created a field that made her hands numb and weak. But Sarah had discovered something during her first night in the cell. The aliens who designed them had never studied human anatomy carefully. Human wrists were more flexible than alien ones. With enough patience and pain, Sarah could dislocate her thumb joint just enough to slip one hand free. She had practiced every night when the guards weren't watching. "Bring up the communication array," Kethvar ordered one of his officers. "We will record her message now." A new station rose from the floor. It had a camera and microphone designed for human use. Someone had done their research, but not enough research. "You will tell your people that you escaped," Kethvar explained. "You will say you are hiding on the third moon of Proxima 7. You will beg them to come rescue you immediately." Sarah looked at the communication equipment. "And if I do this, you'll let me live?" "I will let you die quickly when the time comes," Kethvar replied. "That is more mercy than your species deserves." Sarah nodded slowly. "I understand." But she didn't step toward the communication station. Instead, she stood perfectly still and looked around the bridge. 34 aliens total, all of them focused on her. "Perfect. What are you waiting for?" Kethvar demanded. "I'm thinking about my crew," Sarah said quietly. "The 3 people who died when you destroyed my ship." "They were weak," Kethvar replied with disgust. "Like all humans." Sarah's expression didn't change, but her muscles tensed. "You're probably right. We are weak compared to you." She looked up at the massive alien commander. "Your technology is incredible. Your weapons are beyond anything we can build. Your shields can stop our best attacks." Kethvar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "Finally, you understand reality." "I do understand," Sarah agreed. "I understand that you think you've already won." Something in her tone made several aliens look up from their stations. Kethvar's eyes narrowed. "You think humans are just primitive animals?" Sarah continued. "You think our weapons are toys. You think our tactics are crude?" "Because they are," Kethvar said. Sarah smiled for the first time since her capture. It wasn't a friendly smile. "That's your first mistake," she said. In one smooth motion, she dislocated her thumb and slipped her right hand out of the energy cuff. Before anyone could react, she grabbed the nearest alien guard and snapped his neck with a move she had learned in basic training. The bridge exploded into chaos. Aliens jumped up from their stations. Warning lights flashed. Someone screamed an order in their clicking language, but Sarah was already moving. The dead guard's weapon fell to the floor. She snatched it up and rolled behind a control console as energy beams scorched the air where she had been standing. "Impossible," Kethvar roared. "How did she break the restraints?" Sarah popped up from cover and fired the alien weapon. She had never used one before, but the trigger was obvious. The energy beam hit an alien in the chest and sent him flying across the room. "You never bothered to study human anatomy," she called out as she dove to a new position. "Big mistake." More energy beams flew around the bridge. Sarah kept moving, using the control stations as cover. The aliens were good shots, but they were also panicking. They had never expected their prisoner to fight back. Sarah reached the weapons station and grabbed another guard. This one was bigger than her, but humans had been wrestling with large predators for thousands of years. She used his own weight against him, throwing him into 2 more aliens. "Stop her," Kethvar commanded. "Use the stun weapons." But it was too late for caution. Sarah had found something the aliens hadn't expected her to notice. During her interrogations, she had observed that their own weapons could damage their equipment if set to full power. She cranked the captured energy rifle to maximum and fired it into the main power junction for the bridge. Sparks flew everywhere. Half the lights went out. Several control stations exploded in showers of crystal and metal. In the darkness and confusion, Sarah moved like a ghost. Her human eyes adapted to low light better than the aliens did. She used the emergency lighting to stay hidden while picking off targets one by one. "She's just one human," Kethvar bellowed. "Kill her." But that was the problem. The aliens had studied human technology and human ships. They had never studied humans themselves. They didn't understand what made her species dangerous. Sarah used a shard of broken crystal as a knife. It cut through alien skin more easily than their energy weapons could cut through human determination. She turned their own advanced computers against them, overloading systems and causing more explosions. Most importantly, she fought like a human. Not with careful planning or perfect tactics, With pure animal cunning and the desperate creativity of a species that had fought its way to the top of the food chain on a hostile planet, the aliens had weapons that could destroy planets. But they had never learned to fight dirty. Sarah grabbed a canister of some kind of gas from a damaged life support station. She didn't know what it was, but it was under pressure. She threw it into a sparking electrical panel and dove for cover. The explosion shattered every screen on the bridge. Emergency alarms howled. Smoke filled the air. In the chaos, Sarah reached the communication station. She had memorized the controls during her interrogation. Her fingers flew over the alien interface, adapting human knowledge to alien technology. "This is Commander Sarah Chen to any human forces," she broadcast on all frequencies. "The hegemony fleet is 3 days out from Proxima. 200 ships. They have a trap planned. Repeat, do not engage directly. Use everything we learned about asymmetric warfare. Hit and run. Boarding actions. Make them fight us up close where their technology won't help them." An energy beam barely missed her head. She rolled away from the communication station and found herself face to face with War Master Kethvar himself. The massive alien was bleeding from several cuts. His perfect armor was cracked and smoking. His yellow eyes burned with rage. "Your message won't save them," he snarled. "We will still destroy your entire species." Sarah stood up slowly. She had lost her weapon somewhere in the fight. Her hands were cut and bleeding. She was outnumbered and outgunned, but she was human. And humans had been fighting impossible odds since they first picked up rocks and sticks. "Maybe," she admitted. "But now they'll know you're coming. And you know what the difference is between your people and mine?" Kethva raised his weapon. "What?" Sarah smiled that dangerous smile again. "You fight to win. We fight to survive. And there's nothing more dangerous than a cornered human with nothing left to lose." The weapon fired. But Sarah was already moving, diving toward the emergency escape pods that she had located during her first day on the ship. Behind her, the bridge of the most advanced warship in the hegemony fleet burned. And for the first time in their conquest of human space, the aliens had learned to fear. Sarah ran through the corridors of the alien ship as alarms screamed around her. Red emergency lights flashed in rhythm with the warning sounds. Behind her, she could hear Kethvar shouting orders in the alien language. She had damaged the bridge, but the ship was huge. There were hundreds of aliens on board, and now they were all hunting for her. She needed to reach the escape pods before they organized a proper search. The problem was that she didn't know the ship's layout perfectly. During her 3 days as a prisoner, she had only seen a small part of it. But Sarah had something the aliens didn't expect: human adaptability. She found a maintenance shaft and squeezed inside. It was barely big enough for her, but it would have been impossible for the larger aliens. As she crawled through the narrow space, she could hear them running past in the corridor below. The shaft led to a junction box filled with cables and conduits. Sarah didn't understand alien technology, but electricity was electricity. She pulled out some wires and twisted them together. Sparks flew, and the lights in this section of the ship went out. In the darkness, she dropped down into another corridor. This one was empty. She could hear the aliens searching for her in other parts of the ship, but they were looking in the wrong places. They expected her to head directly for the escape pods. Instead, Sarah went deeper into the ship. She needed more than just an escape. She needed to make sure her message had been sent and that the aliens couldn't stop it. She found what she was looking for on the 4th level, the main communication array. It was a room full of crystal towers that pulsed with energy. 2 alien technicians were working frantically at control panels, probably trying to block her transmission. Sarah picked up a piece of broken metal from the damaged wall. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was sharp. She waited until both aliens had their backs turned, then struck. The first one never knew what hit him. The second one turned around just in time to see Sarah coming. He reached for his weapon, but human reflexes were faster when motivated by desperation. Sarah quickly examined the alien control panels. She couldn't read their symbols, but she could recognize what the technicians had been doing. They were trying to send a jamming signal to block her message. She smashed the jamming equipment with the metal bar. Then she found the main power coupling for the communication array and yanked it loose. The crystal towers went dark. Now the aliens couldn't stop her message from reaching human forces, but they also couldn't send any communications of their own. Kethvar wouldn't be able to coordinate with the rest of his fleet. Sarah heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Time to move again. She made her way toward the escape pod bay using maintenance shafts and service corridors. Twice she had to hide while search teams passed by. The aliens were getting more organized now. They had teams checking every room systematically, but they still didn't understand how humans thought. They were searching like they would search for one of their own people, methodically, logically, following standard procedures. Sarah didn't follow procedures. When she heard a search team coming, she climbed into a waste disposal unit. When they blocked a corridor, she crawled through an air vent. When they set up checkpoints, she went around them through areas they thought were too small for anyone to use. She was 3 levels away from the escape pods when she ran into real trouble. A team of 6 aliens had set up a barrier across the only corridor that led to the pod bay. They had energy weapons and were scanning everything that moved. Sarah studied the situation from a hiding place behind some storage containers. She couldn't fight 6 aliens with just a piece of metal. She needed a better weapon or a distraction. She found both in the storage room where she was hiding. The containers held supplies for the ship's crew. Food, equipment, and something interesting, pressurized canisters of cleaning chemicals. Sarah read the warning symbols on the canisters. She couldn't understand the alien writing, but the pictures were clear enough. Toxic, flammable, dangerous if mixed. She smiled. Humans had been making explosives out of household chemicals since they invented chemistry. Working quickly, she opened several canisters and mixed their contents in a maintenance bucket. The smell was horrible, but the chemical reaction was exactly what she had hoped for. The mixture began to smoke and bubble. Sarah carried the bucket as close to the alien checkpoint as she dared. Then she threw it at their barrier and ran. The explosion was bigger than she had expected. The corridor filled with toxic smoke and flames. The aliens scattered, coughing and stumbling in the chaos. Sarah ran through the confusion and reached the escape pod bay. It was a large chamber lined with small one-person pods. Each pod was designed to carry its occupant to safety if the main ship was damaged. She chose a pod near the back and began the launch sequence. The controls were similar to human designs. Some things were universal. Red button for emergency, green for go. But as the pod prepared to launch, Sarah heard familiar heavy footsteps behind her. Going somewhere, human? She turned to find War Master Kethvar standing in the doorway. He was alone, but he carried a massive energy weapon that looked like it could cut her in half. "You have caused enough damage," he said, stepping into the chamber. "Your message changes nothing. We will still destroy your people." "Maybe," Sarah agreed, "but now they'll be ready for you." Kethvar's mandibles clicked with anger. "Ready with what?" "Your primitive weapons cannot hurt us." "You keep saying that," Sarah observed. "But look around you." "I'm one human with no weapons, and I've torn apart your perfect ship." She gestured at the damage visible through the chamber doorway. Emergency lights still flashed. Smoke drifted in the air. The ship's alarms continued to wail. "That was luck," Kethvar insisted. "We underestimated you." "It will not happen again." "It will happen again," Sarah said confidently. "Because you still don't understand what you're fighting." She moved slowly toward another escape pod, keeping her hands visible. Kethvar tracked her with his weapon but didn't fire yet. He wanted to hear what she had to say. "You think this war is about technology?" Sarah continued. "Better ships, better weapons, better shields. But that's not what makes humans dangerous." "Then what does?" Kethvar demanded. Sarah reached the second escape pod and put her hand on the launch button. "We're the species that looked at predators bigger and stronger than us and decided to hunt them anyway. We're the species that took a planet full of things trying to kill us and made it our home." Kethvar raised his weapon. "Enough speeches. You want to know why you'll lose this war?" Sarah asked. "Because we don't fight fair. We don't follow rules. We use everything we can find as a weapon, and when that doesn't work, we make new weapons out of whatever is lying around." She slammed her hand down on the launch button, not for her pod, but for the one next to it. The empty pod shot out of the ship like a bullet. In the split second that Kethvar's attention was distracted by the unexpected launch, Sarah dove into her own pod and hit the emergency eject. The last thing she saw before her pod shot into space was Kethvar's expression of rage and disbelief. He had been outmaneuvered by a primitive human using primitive tactics. As her pod raced away from the alien flagship, Sarah checked the communication equipment. Her message had been broadcast successfully. By now, every human ship in the galaxy would know that the hegemony fleet was coming to Proxima. More importantly, they would know how to fight back. Not with better technology, but with the oldest human strategy of all, controlled chaos. Behind her, Kethvar's ship was already trying to repair its systems and contact the rest of the fleet. But Sarah had bought her people something precious, time to prepare. The war was far from over, but for the first time since it began, humanity had a real chance to win. Sarah's escape pod drifted through space for 18 hours before a human patrol ship found her. She was unconscious from lack of oxygen but alive. When she woke up in the medical bay of the Earth Defense Corps cruiser Defiance, the first thing she asked was how much time they had left. "The alien fleet will reach Proxima in 36 hours, Captain Morrison told her. He was a veteran officer with gray hair and worried eyes. "Your message got through. Every human ship in the sector is heading here." Sarah sat up in the medical bed, ignoring the protests of the ship's doctor. "How many ships do we have?" 63, Morrison replied. "Everything we could gather on short notice." Sarah felt her heart sink. 63 ships against 200. Even with advance warning, the odds were impossible. "What about my intelligence report?" she asked. "Did you analyze their weaknesses?" Morrison nodded grimly. "Our scientists have been working on it non-stop. The information about their shields only stopping energy weapons is useful. We're loading every ship with kinetic projectiles, old-fashioned bullets and missiles." "That's a start," Sarah said, "but it won't be enough. Their point defense systems can shoot down missiles from long range." "Then what do you suggest?" Morrison asked. Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she smiled. The same dangerous smile she had used on the alien ship. "We do what humans do best," she said. "We improvise." Over the next 30 hours, Sarah worked with the human fleet commanders to develop a battle plan unlike anything they had ever attempted. It wasn't elegant or sophisticated. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and completely insane. In other words, it was perfectly human. When the hegemony fleet arrived at Proxima, they found the human ships waiting for them, but not in the neat battle formation they expected. The human vessels were scattered across the system in small groups, hiding behind asteroids and space debris. War Master Kethvar, commanding from his repaired flagship, felt confident despite his earlier humiliation. His fleet had overwhelming superiority in numbers and technology. The humans might have kinetic weapons now, but they were still primitives fighting with crude tools. "All ships begin the attack," he commanded. "Destroy them quickly." The hegemony fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Their tactics were flawless, their coordination precise. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. That was their first mistake. The human ships didn't fight back in formation. Instead, they attacked like a pack of wolves. Small groups of ships would dart out from hiding, fire everything they had at a single alien vessel, then disappear back into the asteroid field before the aliens could respond. The kinetic weapons worked better than expected. The alien shields designed to stop energy beams barely slowed down solid projectiles. Human bullets and missiles tore through enemy hulls like paper. But the real surprise came when the first human ship was destroyed. Instead of exploding normally, it detonated in a massive fireball that damaged 3 nearby alien vessels. "What was that?" Kethvar demanded. His sensors officer checked the readings. "They overloaded their reactors deliberately. They used their own ship as a bomb." Kethvar's mandibles clicked with disbelief. No civilized species would sacrifice their own ship so casually. It was barbaric. It was wasteful. It was also devastatingly effective. More human ships began ramming attacks, turning themselves into guided missiles. Others used their cargo holds to launch swarms of debris, everything from spare parts to kitchen utensils, at high velocity. The alien point defense systems couldn't track thousands of tiny objects moving in random patterns. "This is not how space battles are supposed to work," Kethvar roared. But the humans didn't care how space battles were supposed to work. They fought the way their ancestors had fought on Earth, with cunning, desperation, and the absolute refusal to give up. Sarah, now commanding a squadron of fighters from the bridge of the Defiance, watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The plan was working, but the cost was terrible. For every alien ship they destroyed, they lost 2 or 3 human vessels. "We can't keep this up," Captain Morrison warned. "We're running out of ships." Sarah looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was in chaos, their perfect formations shattered by human unpredictability. But Kethvar's flagship was still intact, and he was beginning to adapt to their tactics. "There," she pointed at the enemy command ship. If we can take out their leader, the rest of the fleet will fall apart. They're too dependent on Central Command. Morrison shook his head. That ship is too well defended. We'd lose half our remaining forces trying to get close. Sarah studied the display for a moment longer. Then she turned to the captain with a request that made his blood run cold. 20 minutes later, Sarah was strapped into the cockpit of a small maintenance pod. It was barely larger than the escape pod she had used to flee the alien ship, and it was loaded with every explosive they could fit inside. "This is insane," Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. "You'll never get close enough." "Yes, I will," Sarah replied calmly. "Because they won't expect it." She was right. The alien sensors were focused on tracking the larger human ships and their obvious weapons. A single maintenance pod, broadcasting a distress signal and moving slowly, looked like debris from a destroyed vessel. Sarah drifted toward Kethvar's flagship, playing dead. Her pod tumbled end over end, leaking atmosphere in a convincing display of damage. The alien ships ignored her completely. When she was within 100 meters of the flagship's hull, Sarah activated the pod's manual controls and fired its tiny thrusters. The pod shot forward like a bullet, aimed directly at the alien ship's bridge. On the bridge of his flagship, Kethvar saw the small object approaching and realized what was happening. "Evasive maneuvers!" he screamed, but it was too late. The massive alien warship couldn't turn fast enough to avoid something so small and fast. Sarah's pod struck the bridge section and detonated. The explosion wasn't large enough to destroy the entire ship, but it didn't need to be. It punched through the hull and killed everyone on the command deck, including War Master Kethvar. Without their leader's coordination, the hegemony fleet began to fall apart. Individual ships tried to continue the fight, but they were used to following orders, not making decisions. The human forces, trained to operate independently, pressed their advantage. One by one, the alien ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The few that escaped carried news that would spread throughout the hegemony. Humans were not the weak primitives they had seemed. The Battle of Proxima became the turning point of the war. Not because humanity had developed better technology, but because they had fought like humans, chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly ruthless when their survival was at stake. In the wreckage of Kethvar's flagship, investigators later found the alien commander's personal logs. His final entry, recorded just before Sarah's attack, was telling, "I do not understand these humans. They fight without logic. They sacrifice everything for nothing. They use crude weapons and primitive tactics. By all rational analysis, we should have defeated them easily, but they refuse to lose. How do you fight an enemy that does not know when it is beaten?" The answer, as humanity had proven once again, was simple. You don't fight them. You survive them, or you become another. Lesson in why it was never wise to underestimate the species that had crawled out of the caves and decided to claim the stars. Sarah. Chen's name would be remembered throughout human space as the woman who proved that sometimes the best weapon against superior technology was superior stubbornness. And in the years that followed, as humanity spread across the galaxy, other alien species would learn the same lesson that the hegemony had learned too late. Never corner a human, and if you do, never assume they won't find a way to bite back.